Hello, welcome back to the series on wearing the whole armor of God. Part 4 has taken me a little bit longer to release than I originally intended, but that's okay because Part 4 falls perfectly in line with what we're talking about today, which is taking up the shield of faith. It required me to take up the shield of faith to know that even though it was taking a little longer because the enemy was throwing roadblocks and darts and everything my way to keep it from being released, that faith allowed me to know that God had me protected, God had me covered, and that it would be released in God's timing and not mine. So it's okay that it took a little longer because it was perfectly in alignment. So, like with the other pieces of armor that we've already talked about, we're going to talk about how the shield served the Roman soldier. A shield was probably one of the most essential pieces of armor. The only difference is that the soldier didn't wear the shield, he carried the shield. A Roman soldier's shield was called a scutum. It was thought to be a symbol of power and of strength. The original design was a broad piece of metal, and it was made in a circular form, and it pretty much covered almost the entire length of the soldier's body. So if the soldier was holding it in front of him, then not only his front was protected, but also his sides were protected. Notably, regardless of whether the soldier was right-handed or left-handed, the shield was always carried on the left, in the left hand. When I read about that part, God immediately gave me the scripture of Romans 8:34, confirming that Jesus Christ is sitting in the place of honor on the right side, interceding for us, because he's already conquered death and everything that we could possibly go through. Everything that the enemy could possibly throw our way, Jesus has already conquered, and he's on that right side. So the shield wasn't just a form of protection, it was also a weapon. The same concepts apply to the shield of faith. It's not just your protection, faith is your weapon. We learn from scripture that we are empowered as children of God to wield the arsenal of faith as a spiritual weapon, but also that with Jesus on our right side, on God's right hand side, he is the protective presence and our chief security. So essentially, Jesus is serving as our shield from evil so that we can use our faith as a weapon. In Psalms 35, David cries out to God for help, saying, "Put on your armor, Lord. Take up your shield and protect me. Grab your weapons of war and block the way of the wicked who come to fight me. Stand for me when they stand against me." In Psalm 91, David said that his arms of faithfulness are a shield keeping you from harm. And in Psalms 144, that he is a shelter of love, a fortress of faith, who wraps himself around you as a secure shield, just like the scutum did for the Roman soldiers. It wrapped around them to protect them, to secure them. So Hebrews 11:1 tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. In this context, it means that faith involves a huge element of trust in God. You need to be like you were taught in school. Examine the evidence and see the proof that God is and has always been consistent and unchanging. And with that proof, you must believe that God will fulfill his promises to you. In Romans chapter 8, Paul reminds us that we are saved in this hope. But hope means that we must trust and wait for what is still unseen. Why would we need to hope for something that we already see? Because that means we already have it. So because our hope is set on what is yet to be seen, we patiently keep on waiting on its fulfillment based on the proof of the evidence that God will do what he says he will do. Faith is your first line of defense. Satan will first cast fiery darts at you. Might be temptation, trials, accusations, roadblocks. It's those things that you often don't see coming at you. But the shield of faith is there to protect you from those. Bounce them off, right? 2, the shield guards you. According to Hebrews chapter 4, we are guarded because we now have a high priest who can sympathize with our weakness. Why? Because he has been tempted in every way, just as we are now, with the exception that he was without sin. So that should give us the confidence to approach the throne of grace and believe that we will receive grace and mercy in our time of need. 3, the shield of faith deflects. Having faith in God and in his promises, you have the power to deflect and bounce off all the fiery darts the enemy throws at you. You have the power to not allow them to penetrate your mind and soul. Hebrews chapter 6 says, we have this certain hope, like a strong, unbreakable anchor holding our souls to God himself. And our anchor of hope is fastened to the mercy seat in the heavenly realm. 4, the shield of faith can stop the enemy dead in his tracks, completely incapacitate him. I take you back to the book of Matthew when Jesus was tempted. Being equipped with the shield of faith, Jesus simply said, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Then Satan left, and the angels came and attended to Jesus. Number 5, your faith combined with the faith of other children of God is even more powerful. During an attack, the Roman soldiers would often form an arrangement that was called the tortoise. It was kind of a circular arrangement where they were all together and they would put their shields up, making a wall all around everyone. This wall protected everyone. It was a wall of shields. Ecclesiastes says that though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves, and a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. So when they would come together as a group of believers, come together as a group of protectors, it wasn't even easily broken through that. So the shield of faith is what will protect your inner man, your soul. I want you to remember that you are not a body with a soul. You were a soul first who has been given a body. You can buy protective equipment to protect your flesh, but the shield of faith protects the most vulnerable parts of you, the soul that God sent to this earth. According to scripture, the shield wasn't a piece that you wore. It was a piece that you had to choose to pick up. Ephesians 6:16 says, you must take up the shield of faith, which means you must deliberately choose faith, no matter what the circumstances are. When the attacks seem too much for you to handle, you choose to trust in God and His strength to protect you. We talked about how large a Roman soldier's shield was, how large the scudam was. But God doesn't even require ours to be that big. He said, for those who have faith as small as a mustard seed, has the ability to move mountains. You can't move a mountain on your own. But equipped with faith as a shield that comes from God and God alone, that mountain can be moved. As I close today, I want you to take up your shield of faith daily. It is your only form of protection from the things that are not seen. I want to leave you with the scripture, Hebrews 11:16. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him. So seek God, find the evidence, and take up your shield of faith. Thank you for joining me. And if you like the series, you want to go back and watch the rest of the parts and see the parts that are still yet to come, then hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for all that is yet to come.